In this video, we're going to go over the data science project. So a data science project is what really is going to set yourself apart from the competition. A data science project is going to help you be able to get hired into various positions, right, without having experience. Because one of the first things that obviously individual companies, businesses are looking for is for you to have experience in the field. However, in order for you to be able to, combat this and, overcome this, then you want to be able to have some sort of project that you're working on, right? That you can show what you've been able to do, how you went through it in a methodical process, and then how you were able to come to a certain conclusion, right? The results, the outcome, and then how you can improve that. So in this particular video, we're going to walk through the data science project, and then we're actually going to have a data science project within this course that we're going to walk through in another video. And so let's go ahead and jump into the data science project. So the data science project, like I mentioned, is the single best thing that's going to help you if you don't have experience, right? Because with experience, you can showcase, hey, what you've done, what you've been able to accomplish and everything, right? But if you don't have that, then the best thing that you can do is have a data science project, right? That's where you're going to be able to overcome the need for experience, right? Because if you're brand new and you don't have any experience whatsoever, this project here, this data science project, or having one of these is going to be able to make the difference here for you to be able to get hired. Because if you don't have any experience, but you have some data science projects, then that's going to be, a great replacement, and employers are going to, be a lot more inclined to want to hire you because you understand how to do work, right? You understand how to go about the process of actually doing a project and being able to come to a conclusion, right? And then projects show something beyond having a job. It shows that you're a self-starter because you're willing to invest and work on a project on your free time, right? And it shows employers that you're really interested in the field, because think about it from their perspective. If they're seeing that you are somebody maybe recently graduated, or you don't have any experience in the actual field working at a corporation or whatever that may be, then having a particular project is going to show them that you are a self-starter, that you're willing to invest time of your own to be able to put something like this together and be able to showcase, hey, if I was working in your company, this is how I would go about, tackling XYZ problems or whatever that may be, right? So having this project or a project in here is going to, make the difference in you being able to land a position or not, right? Especially when you don't have any type of experience. And so with this particular project, you want there to be some sort of balance, right? Where you want to showcase your expertise in a specific type of data, and then also show that you can do work in a wide range of domains. When you're starting to build out your portfolio, think about projects that you've already completed or could complete quickly that show both depth and expertise in that type of data and range of expertise, right? Very much so important here. Remember, the data science project is the replacement for no experience, because it's essentially like you having experience but creating something that wasn't actually used in the real world but still has real world implications and applicability, right? So very much so important to understand that the data science project is going to help you replace having no experience, right? And so the data science project lifecycle is what we're going to walk into next and walk through next, right? So this is what you really want to be able to go through whenever you're creating a data science project, right? You want to go through this life cycle. So number one is the project planning. This is where you have the problem that you're going to solve or the data that you're looking to explore. And then we have the data collection. This is where you're collecting the data. You are essentially being able to collect the data by, let's say having your own web scraper, or by just, mining the web and finding various forms of data. There's also Kaggle or Google data sets where you can find data to use. And then step 3, this is the data cleaning. You take the data you've extracted and you make it usable for the models. And then step 4, this is where you do the exploratory data analysis, also known as EDA. This is where you're highlighting trends with visuals to make sure that they really stand out, right? This is where you're really showing, like on the image on the right hand side there, you're showing some slides, you're showing some visuals, you're making it so that it's easily understood by key executives that don't have, the technical background or expertise. And then the next step is the model building, right? This is where you're trying different models to see which one works best for our specific use case. And then finally, we have the model deployment. So this is where you are making your model useful to someone as an API endpoint. So this is where you can actually send to potential employers or, to whoever you're looking to impress or showcase this particular project, right? Where they can actually use it and be able to, use in the real world. Because it's great to be able to create a project, but if it has no real, world kind of applicability, or if it's not useful in the real world, then it's not going to be the best type of project. You want to make sure that the project can be potentially useful in the real world, right? Where it adds value. Okay, so let's look at some of the types of projects that you want to be able to, put together and work with. So in data science, there are three main problems to solve, right? You can look at this at a very high level and understand that these are the three main problems that a data scientist is typically looking to solve and uncover, right? Number one is the regression. Number two is the classification. And then number three is the clustering. And so if you don't understand what these mean and what these are, I'll give you a quick overview. So essentially, regression analysis is a form of predictive modeling technique that is used to investigate and understand the relationship between a dependent target and an independent variable, okay? And then classification, this is very simple. You're really looking to classify different data sets into different categories, right? Very, very simple. And then with clustering, this is where you're dividing the data points into a number of groups. And so what you're ultimately doing with clustering is you're segregating groups with similar traits and assigning them into clusters, right? So ultimately, like I said, these three main problems to solve: the regression, where you're looking to find relationships between, a particular variable and a independent variable; classification, where the technique is really all about categorizing data; and then clustering, where you're essentially segregating groups with similar traits and assigning them into various clusters. And so in the project, you should be comparing the performance of various different algorithms that fall under these three problem types. I also recommend doing one project on an advanced data science concept of machine learning, such as deep learning, image classification, and NLP, right? Because it's really going to show your wide range of experience, and you should look to have at least 2 to 5 different projects in your GitHub portfolio and website. Now, we're going to have a project in this particular course that we're going to walk through in another video. But this is essentially the three main problems that you want to solve when you're putting together a project, okay? Okay, so let's look at how you can make your project stand out. So you want to have unique projects that stand out from the crowd, and if you can, tie it to some sort of personal interest. Maybe you have an interest in sports, or maybe you have an interest in, dating, or maybe you have an interest in basket weaving, or whatever they may be, right? You want to be able to create something that you're, going to be genuinely interested in, right? Because it's going to be easier for you to work with. So you want a project that creates real world value for someone. This is a big factor here. Real world value, right? Because this shows that you understand users and business value. It allows you to showcase that you can actually solve real business problems. Because if you, put together some sort of data set or some sort of project that is kind of like, like who cares, right? Then it's not really going to be useful, and it's going to be all for naught. You want to have something that where an employer, a business owner, somebody could actually take that data and make it useful, be able to use it in their business, right? That creates value. Value creation is the big thing here, right? Because if you presented this data to an ex-business owner or, somebody who is a consultant or whatever that may be, right? They could be able to use that data in their current business and be able to make decisions that would, benefit them, right? That would solve a problem or create value for them. So very important to understand that. And then with data collection, right, this is where you can really flex your web scraping ability. If you can, showcase how you are able to scrape information, scrape data, right? And then creating new features for your model is a great way to improve its performance. So an example of this is if you have latitude and longitude data, you could create a new feature that is a distance from a common location, right? So being able to have unique features that are, not going to be the status quo, that show that you're going above and beyond, is going to be a big factor as well. And then solving problems with multiple different models is also going to make you stand out, because oftentimes it's a combination of these models that produce the best results. So explore how pairing models impact certain outcomes. And then finally, you want to be able to have your model be deployed, right? When you make your model into an API or web app, the project is something that is truly tangible. And this is where the employers are really going to see the value of this, because they're going to be able to deploy it and see it in the real world. And so when you can make it into something tangible, then it's a big, big factor, right? Because one of my counterparts, a good buddy of mine, is a data scientist in the R space, and he creates these R Shiny apps that he delivers to his clients, where they have a tangible physical product that they can actually use and play with and work with, so that it makes it so it's something tangible. Because a lot of times data scientists are just making different insights, predictions, understandings with the data set, right? They don't have typically things that are tangible. That's why it's great to have those presentation skills where you can present the information, the data. But when you can make something that's tangible by deploying the model through some sort of API or web app, then that's really going to go a long way and really be able to differentiate your project versus maybe others that are out there that are also submitting applications. So that's going to be it here for this one, and we'll see you on the next one.